All right, guys, I just want to welcome back to Everything College Football Podcast. Today, me and Nick will be looking at the Duke's Mayo Bowl, December 27th, Wednesday at 5:40 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN, live from Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte, North Carolina on ESPN. Looking at these offenses, North Carolina, it's going to be life without Drake May as he formally announced his plans to declare for the NFL Draft, which was certainly expected. But that's going to give the reins to Connor Harrell, true freshman quarterback, only 6 attempts on the season. That was a blowout win over Campbell. So this is completely uncharted territory for him. Good news is he has a great supporting cast. Tez Walker, I'm pretty sure, is playing in this game. He came back after, the NCAA finally made the right call. Led the team with 7 touchdowns and 699 yards. Only makes you think what they could have accomplished if he was there the whole time. J.J. Jones, I figured he'd be a breakout player in this conference. He did a pretty good job. 2 scores, 658 yards on top of a team-high 42 receptions. Bryson Nesbitt, a big fan of his at tight end, 585 and 5 scores. And then, the rest of their receiving room's pretty deep, but they've also battled a lot of injuries. Guys like Nate McCollum, Kobe Paysour. So we'll see who's playing in this game. For the most part, it looks like he's going to have his top 3 weapons to work with. What do you make of this quarterback situation they're now in, Nick, for this one bowl game?
Obviously, Drake May had a great history with this team. He really did work hard for this team. He was this fantastic player who really did a lot for UNC. He flirted with the portal in the past, but he really stuck it out and rode with Carolina after a phenomenal season last year. 4,300 yards last year, 38 touchdowns, 7 picks. Had a drop down this year, certainly. 3,600 yards, 24 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions is what he ended the season with. And now he goes on to the draft, most likely going to be a top 5 draft pick at this point. And now you plug in a new quarterback here named Harrell, who's a 3-star recruit out of high school. He played at Thompson in Alabama, a very good team in the state of Alabama. They have, played well. They won a couple state titles with him under the helm. And now he's gonna be the guy to take over for this team. It's an experienced kid who hasn't played a whole lot jumping into a bowl game. You never like to see that, but like you said, it's nice he has his top weapon in Tez Walker. The whole NCAA waiver thing was just a mess with Walker. I really felt bad for the kid, but when he got on the field, he was an absolute star. 700 yards receiving, 17 yards per grab, and 7 scores. Just a fantastic performance from him despite all the controversy. J.J. Jones, Bryson Nesbitt are 2 talented players as well. Nesbitt, 585, 14.3, and 5 touchdowns for him. Overall, this is a wide, deep receiving room that has some nice talent for this kid to throw to. He's jumping in here, though. I got a feel for him. I'm a little worried. It's going to be tough to make that transition to competing against this good West Virginia defense.
Yeah, I'm now reading Tez Walker is actually declared for the bowl game and is skipping, so that's going to be a big loss there. But Amari Hampton is playing in this game. 1,442 rushing yards, 15 scores. Before the season started, I considered this would be one of the deeper backfields in the country. And, it literally wasn't that much at all because this guy in Hampton just took the reins and ran away with it. 20 attempts per contest, 120 yards per game. This team puts up about 120 per contest. Drake May, though, he was a big part with his legs. Not just yards, but touchdowns as well. So that's something that they're going to have to account for with Harrell to see what kind of mobility he has. And then British Brooks, he has some solid efficiency as a physical runner. So this offense, they could have accomplished a lot this year, Nick. Very disappointing season, I think, all around, including May himself, who should have been on the Heisman podium. But for this one game, it's going to be interesting to see what they have in this young quarterback. Very interested to see how some of these weapons play, including that weapon in the backfield. The offensive line, of course, a unit that was pretty sound this year, not elite by any means, but overall, Willie Lampkin coming over playing guard was a very good player for them. Should have some nice protection for this young quarterback. Overall, what are your final assessment of this offense?
Scratch what I said, losing Tez Walker, that's a huge blow for this quarterback. He doesn't have his top receiver to rely on. It's going to be the Amari Hampton show in this bowl game, almost 1,500 yards on the ground, 15 scores. He's going to have to carry the load here and take a lot off the back of Harrell, who's going to struggle with not a whole lot of talent to throw to. Very tough loss losing a guy like Walker and Drake May. These are brutal losses for a bowl game, certainly.
West Virginia offense, a unit that was magnificent this year, 31.6 points per game. Garrett Green for the last couple of years. Everyone knew how talented he was. Finally was given the keys to the offense. 2,100 passing yards, 15 touchdowns, added 708 rushing and another 13 scores. This is a fun, tough, physical football player to watch. Only completes about 53%. This is a resilient guy who can certainly make some good throws downfield. The passing production from this team isn't all that great, though. It's really a balanced attack here. Devin Carter, a possession receiver, had 501 yards and 2 scores. Cole Taylor at tight end, 411 and 4 scores. Hudson Clement, a freshman, 17 for 391, 23 yards per catch for him. And then you go down the list with some other younger guys who got sparring production. But I think this is just a fun rushing attack overall. 234 yards per game. Green against phenomenal. Jaheim White, 792 as a freshman. 8 yards per attempt for him. C.J. Donaldson, of course, a guy who's 2 years in a row had some really good numbers. 798 and 11 touchdowns coming into this game. Been a pleasant surprise here, Nick, especially White, who came out of nowhere and just had 100-plus yards, 130-plus yards. That is 3 of the last 4 games, including 200-plus against Cincinnati. This is a fun offense. They're not all that deep a receiver by any means, but when it comes to running the ball downhill and getting vertical, they're some of the best in the game at doing it this year.
It's a fantastically fun offense to watch. I really like what I've seen. Garrett Green, I thought, was a good quarterback stepping into the year. We figured that there could be a lot of potential for this offense, but 31.6 points per game and 5.26 yards per attempt on the ground, plus 6.24 yards per play is a number that was higher than I think you and I both expected. Green's a great quarterback. The accuracy is obviously an issue, right? The 53% comp rate's not great, plus the 4 picks, which is not terrible. 15 touchdowns, 2,100 yards passing. It really is about the rushing attack with this team. C.J. Donaldson has been incredible for this team. 800 yards on the ground, 11 scores. Jaheim White, 800 yards on the ground, 3 scores for him. Garrett Green's got 13 scores himself on the ground and 708. That's a nice 3-headed monster there that is very balanced. The receiving room has some talented players. Devin Carter, Cole Taylor are all solid pieces. Hudson Clement has 4 touchdowns, 23 yards per grab, 18.6 for Carter and 2 scores. So this is an offense that has a variety of ways to hit you, but their best way is obviously running the ball. They're very efficient on the ground. 234.3 per game is a solid number. 438 total yards of offense per game. This is a good offense that's really finally kind of clicking under Neil Brown for the first time. I'm really happy with what I've seen out of this Mountaineers offense.
Yeah, and this offensive line's great as well. Zach Frazier unfortunately hurt against Baylor in the finale, but he's not going to play. He's their best player up there. Brandon Yates, a really good guy who can play anywhere on the interior. Wyatt Millum, his left tackle spot was sound all season long. Doug Nestor was really good. This is an offensive line was phenomenal, so they certainly have that going for them in the right direction. Wish Frazier a speedy recovery. You look at the defenses, I didn't pull the trigger on doing anything good in terms of predictions for UNC this season because I felt like this defense would let me down because I've gotten fooled too many times by expecting them to be able to, do great things. 27 points per game this season, slightly fewer than it was last year, but it's really much of the same thing. And this is a defensive line that has talent, and I certainly have raved on them plenty of times. Kamar Rucker, Amari Gaynor, a linebacker coming over, certainly added some nice production. Bayou Atkinson, Miles Murphy, Desmond Evans. I mean, these guys were able to tee off on South Carolina first game of the year, 16 TFL. They had 9 sacks or something like that. They only hit double-figure tackle for loss one more time all season long, and that was 10 against Campbell. They didn't, topple the 6 TFL mark once the rest of the year. So this D-line certainly did not live up to the expectations I certainly had or what they did in week 1. Cedric Gray's not going to be playing in this game. Power Eccles is really going to have to fill that gap there of his 92 tackles. So they certainly still have a nice productive player in the middle, but without Gray, it's going to be a big loss. And even with him on the field, they still struggled against the run. I mean, the second half of the year, they're giving up 200 each week, it seemed. 170 plus, numerous different occasions. They gave up 250 to Clemson, 350 to Georgia Tech. Virginia had 228 in a loss there. This defense is no good, Nick. I'm not a fan of it really one bit. I thought they had some really good talent. Mac Brown, though, he just can't get the side of the ball figured out, which is unfortunate because they've really wasted some opportunities here with Drake May.
Cedric Gray was a fantastic linebacker for this team, right? The 121 total tackles. It's going to be tough to replace that. That's a very big ask to try and replace that type of talent there. Tough loss for this game, certainly. Power Eccles is a good leader for this team, a nice physical player, 92 total tackles, 5.5 tackles for loss, plus a pick for him. Kamani Rucker, 56 total tackles, 14 tackles for loss, 8.5 sacks. That's your real production right there in the backfield with Gray gone. Really, there isn't much left. Amari Gaynor has 6 tackles for loss, 2.5 sacks, 24 total tackles. But outside of those two, there is really not a whole lot of production here. This team's going to struggle in the backfield when they play against a very powerful rushing attack like West Virginia has. This defense is going to get torched over and over again. This defense continues to let Mac Brown and company down. They really just have not been able to figure out at all on Chapel Hill.
14 TFL, 8.5 sacks for Rucker, who will be playing in this game. Again, another talented defensive line that certainly has the potential to really be good in opportunities, but certainly haven't. The secondary, 63% comp rate, 242 yards per game allowed. They did have 12 picks. This unit was certainly, I think, kind of on par with what we expected. Didn't expect anything too strong from them. There's certain games like NC State had 330 yards on them for whatever reason. Georgia Tech put up almost 300 as well. Miami had 4 touchdowns and 400 yards. I mean, they're over here getting slaughtered by passing attacks. They really shouldn't be able to do that. Those teams certainly all had their bright spots at times, but it's kind of disappointing to see that. They do have some nice players on the back end. Elijah Huzzy with 3 picks. Armani Chapman is a really good veteran. Don Chapman himself is also very good. So Giovanni Biggers as well. Some nice players in the back end for UNC. Overall, this is a secondary that kind of was on par with expectations, but they seem to let you down when you least expect it. Overall, what do you think this defense is in for in this game?
I think this defense is going to, face some problems here. This is a tough West Virginia offense that has a good opportunity. I think there are some solid pieces in the secondary. Elijah Hazali is a solid player, 42 total tackles, 3 picks, 6 pass breakups. Marcus Allen, 47 total tackles, 8 pass breakups, and a pick. But they're just losing their top tackler in Cedric Gray, and it's a defense that was already kind of banged up and just not producing. It's going to be tough going for this defense to get 400 yards per game. I think West Virginia can certainly get a ton of yards on the ground at this point.
And now you look at the West Virginia defense was also pretty, big in them kind of having this resurgence. 27.5 points per game, give up 384 per contest. Some pretty solid numbers for the Mountaineers. You want to start with what they were able to do in the secondary. Certainly nowhere the number 1 ranked pass defense they had numerous seasons back. Less than 60% comp rate, 25 touchdowns allowed. They do have 9 picks. Haven't recorded one in the last 4 games, though. But they still won 3 of those games. Led by Beanie Bishop. This is a phenomenal player. Came over from Minnesota, former Western Kentucky product as well. 4 interceptions, 20 pass breakups. Just an elite player there in the backfield. Anthony Wilson at safety had a big season as well. Aubrey Burks. This is a former All-American player as well. So that's some nice talent back here. Bishop is just a stud, Nick, and going against a young quarterback, he's going to be looking to bait him all night long.
This is certainly an opportunity for Bishop to succeed against this young quarterback. Beanie Bishop is just a great player. 59 total tackles, 4 picks, 20 pass breakups. I mean, that is a ridiculous amount of production. 20 pass breakups is super impressive for him. He is really a talented player at cornerback. He has taken over and helped out this team. 27 points per game, 4.35 yards per attempt on the ground, and 5.85 yards per play. This defense has led the resurgence for this West Virginia Mountaineers team. They have some other solid pieces in the secondary. Audrey Burks is a solid player as well. 43 total tackles, 3.5 tackles for loss, 4 picks. Marcus Floyd, 43 total tackles, 7 pass breakups, and a pick. Anthony Wilson is another solid piece for this defense who's been able to produce some nice production. 71 total tackles, 5 pass breakups, and a pick for him. This is a secondary that I like a lot. They're getting better. Yes, they haven't had a whole lot of picks as of late, but I think they're still a very strong unit.
The run defense was on par with, very similar numbers than last year. They're actually on par to do better this season. Last season, that is. They've only given up 200-plus yards twice. That was to the teams of Oklahoma. Last time they faced a very productive back in Ollie Gordon. He torched them, 281 and 4 touchdowns the Pokes had that afternoon in Morgantown. So I'm certainly kind of concerned about their ability to slow down the run here in this game, especially with Mike Lockhart not playing. Lee Kabogba has been great at linebacker. Ben Cutter, a freshman, is really going to have to step up here. Hershey McLaurin also not playing. So they're losing some productive guys who can get into the backfield. I think Sean Martineau, Jared Bartlett, some veterans looking to kind of step up in this game. I don't think the run defense is going to be, a big liability by any means. I think they're certainly going to give up probably about 200 yards in this game. But if they have the same effort they did against Gordon, Nick, they're going to get absolutely trounced.
They certainly will get trounced if they have the same effort. There are some solid players in this front part of this defense. I think there's good leaders here. Lee Kapogba is a player we loved in the preseason. 85 total tackles, led the way with the team. 6.5 tackles for loss, 3 sacks. Ben Cutter, 51 total tackles, 6 tackles for loss, 2 sacks. Jared Bartlett, 44 total tackles, 4.5 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks for him. So good production there. There are some other players deeper down the depth charts with limited appearances. Sean Martin's a good linebacker for this team. 27 total tackles, 5 tackles for loss, and 1 sack for him. So I think there are some good players here. Sean Martin comes off the edge, but still some talented players nonetheless. This is a unit that has some success here, and this is a struggling UNC offense. I think there's a great opportunity for this West Virginia defense to take advantage of that.
The final thoughts and the prediction. For UNC, you want to slow down that Mountaineers run game, let your own balance cook, and, you want to let Green work if you're West Virginia, and just run the ball as much as you can. I think we're going to see a high-scoring affair at 45-33. I think UNC is going to get absolutely dominated on the ground. I think you'll see some quick scores as well. UNC, even with a young quarterback, they have enough talent, I think, to hold up in this game. So I don't think it's going to be a blowout by any means. But I think you're going to see a lot of points with the Mountaineers coming out on top. We said the same thing last year, going out to San Diego. UNC would get absolutely bounced, right? So I don't want to be too aggressive here, considering they're playing in their home state in this one. So I think that's certainly something to note. But I don't think they're going to win this game. West Virginia, they're going to be amped up for this one. I think overall the matchup edges favor them significantly. You have too many opt-outs for UNC with a young quarterback. This line with them, being almost favored, I mean, it's kind of absurd. So I'll go ahead and take West Virginia to cover with ease.
I'll take West Virginia to cover as well. Like you said, last year we kind of fell for the trap. UNC made that a game against Oregon. They ultimately ended up losing by a point. But that was a team that fought a little bit harder. We were kind of impressed with how they fought here. When you look at this West Virginia team, in the preseason, we had some nice things to say about them. They're a team that we both like a little bit here. I think this is a defense that's fun, and we figured the offense had a chance to break out. We had called for Neil Brown to be fired last year. That didn't happen. He got retained for one more year, and now he makes a bowl at 8-4. He's not going anywhere at this point. I think he's going to be locked into this team, and that could work for them if they're finally starting to build something out there in Morgantown. The fans were into it this year. The crowds looked great at that stadium. I like West Virginia to win this game, get a bowl win for the first time in a while here. Kind of funny that UNC is playing twice in Charlotte. They're playing for the second time at Bank of America Stadium this year, where they beat South Carolina early in the year. I just think they're going to struggle through this game. They've struggled in the past in this bowl game. They lost to South Carolina in this bowl game 2 years ago. They lost last year in the bowl game against Oregon. I just think Mac Brown's teams just don't really care that much about the bowls, and they kind of just sleepwalk their way through. I like West Virginia a lot in this one.
That's it for today's episode. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.